Hey there folks, and welcome back to the I Am CDB project. I of course am your host CDB, you are not, and today I'm coming to you from the road on my commute home. And the reason I'm shooting this video is I had a number of people who have wanted updates on fasting, intermittent and otherwise, and I have I think a fairly interesting story to tell on that, and just to review where I left off a couple of months ago. I had lost a total of 100 pounds, or a little over. I was down to 185 pounds from over 285 pounds. Anyway, I had done that in a fairly short period of time through fasting, multi-day fasting and intermittent fasting. And so anyhow, a couple of months ago, I'm gonna guess a little over 2 months ago, I decided to give fasting a break just to see what would happen. So what I did in this case was I continued exercising, I continued my activity level pretty much at the same level, but I stopped fasting intermittent and otherwise. That is to say, I ate normally. And most times I don't eat 3 meals a day anyway, but I went back to eating, say, 2 meals a day for the most part without fasting. And what happened during those 2 months is I gained approximately somewhere around 13 pounds during that time, just from going back. And the type of eating I'm talking about is full-on carbohydrates, not really watching carbs, not intermittent fasting at all, not paying any sort of respect to, windows of eating and so forth as you do with intermittent fasting. Although my activity level stayed the same, I put on some weight. And so what that tells me, at least in my case, and of course I always have to caveat all of this by saying my use case may not be like yours, but I have found in my case that you simply can't exercise it off. You can certainly exercise, and that'll help the health of your heart and your muscles and all the rest of it. But if you eat in a certain fashion, even if you're exercising, you can still gain weight, which is what happened to me. Now again, I ate anything I wanted to. I wasn't paying any sort of attention to, the type of eating. And I'm sorry for that light coming in the back there. There is nothing I can do about it. The sun is just back there at this point, but hopefully when I move over a little ways, it'll subside a little bit. I know that's awful to look at, and I apologize, but I can't really shield it from you. That's just where the sun's coming in this time of year. But anyway, to make a very long story short, it's very difficult for people, at least with my type of metabolism, to simply exercise and expect the weight to fall off if you eat normally. That is to say, you might eat fast food once in a while, you're eating pizza, you're eating some good food as well. If you're not really watching your diet, at least at my age with my metabolism, you're going to gain weight. And so now, having discovered all that, and I thought this might be the case, I'll go back to just intermittent fasting and doing some fasting during the week, which I kind of enjoy. Some other things that I learned during the past 2 months that was interesting. Once I started eating normally, I found myself to be hungrier all the time. So I think there's something about when you consume carbohydrates, I think you just stay hungry. Sugars and carbohydrates, that's my personal feeling. You may not have the same experience. Because when I'm fasting, other than day 1 or maybe day 2, I'm not that hungry typically. But as soon as I started eating normally and going back to some of my old habits, I was hungrier all the time. So for example, if I ate a meal 2 hours later, I'd be hungry again. When I'm fasting, that's not really the case. I could fast several days in a row without eating anything and not be particularly hungry. The other thing that I noticed was my energy level did not go up when I was eating normally, despite consuming carbohydrates and all these sugars and things that give you, quick energy. My energy level did not go up whatsoever. Also, some of the headaches that I'd had before I started fasting and losing weight came back. Now, only a few, but they did come back. And during the time that I was fasting, I didn't have a single headache. I didn't have to take a single Advil or anything. But once I started eating normally again, the headaches, although infrequent, did come back. So what I've learned, at least in my own case, is I need to watch what I'm eating and then the way that I'm eating. And so what I'll do now is fast a day or two a week and then intermittent fast the rest of the week. And that is to say, confine my eating to a very small window, or only eat one meal a day some days, or something of that nature. When I do that, the weight continues to come off. However, when I go back to eating 2 meals a day, and not without respect to what those meals consist of, even if I exercise, the weight will come back on. That's what I've learned from this sort of experience. It was a nice vacation, just to sort of going back to eating whatever I want when I wanted, but the result was I picked up, 13 pounds, which sounds like a lot, but it won't be much of a problem really for me to knock that back off, because it tends to fall off rather quickly when I'm more disciplined about what I'm doing. And I just wanted to share that with you. Your mileage may vary, as they say. You may find that you can eat completely normally and you'll be fine. Now, one other thing to mention, if I was eating super healthy, that is to say really watching what I was eating, I would imagine the weight would not have come back on as quickly, although I suspect if I was still eating a healthy diet of carbohydrates, it would have come back in one fashion or another. I know there's been some stuff in the news recently about ketogenic dieting, and I don't do keto. For me, it's too difficult, and I think there are some legitimate concerns about ingesting, high levels of fat all the time with very little of anything else. I mean, I think they'll have to do a lot of research on that and determine where it goes. There's different schools of thought on that. But I just try to watch, the carbs. But really what does it for me more than anything is simply not eating and fasting, or intermittent fasting. That's where I get the most benefit. And interestingly enough, that's when I have the most energy. So I fasted a little last week, and I fasted this week, and I've dropped a little weight, and I actually have more energy than those 2 months when I was eating, say, 2 meals a day every day. I rarely eat breakfast, so I don't know if I ever ate 3 meals, probably a couple of times, but my energy level's actually up. I feel better when I'm fasting, which is counterintuitive to what, you would expect. Everybody associates eating with taking in energy, which you can therefore use and feel better. And for me, I've found that when I reduce the amount of eating, my energy level goes up, which is, again, absolutely counterintuitive based on what we've been told our entire lives. But I really call into question a lot of what we've been taught in terms of eating for our entire lives. I really, just based on my own experience, I really question. I question what we're being told, both in the medical community to some degree, and from the FDA or whomever. Just my own experience has shown that less is more when it comes to eating, and that is to say, not eating around the clock, or 3 meals a day, or constantly eating and snacking. My experience has proven to me, without a shadow of a doubt, that if you eat around the clock and you snack, or you eat multiple times a day, at least in my case, even if my activity level is up, I'll gain weight. It's just as simple as that with my body type at my age, period, end of story. So I know exactly, how I have to continue my plan to, and again, I think, I'd reached my goal before. I'll reach that. I'll hit that again and then exceed it. I don't know where I'll end up. I suspect, 175, 170, I don't know, maybe as low as 165. We'll see. Now, fortunately, I can still wear my the smaller clothes I had purchased. So, and when the clothes started feeling a little tighter, I was like, okay, it's time to get back on. It's time to get back on the stick. So that's been my experience. I apologize for the backlighting and the sun shining in, but there's nothing I can do for that. A lot of people have asked, and I thought I'd share the experience. And again, this is just my experience. It may not hold true for you whatsoever, but I do strongly believe that fasting, intermittent or otherwise, can really have significant benefits, I think, for a lot of people, not just me. And that's kind of my thought on it, and you can take that and use it however you see fit. But certainly I make no claims to be an expert on this. I can only share my experience and let you know what has happened to be. And I thought that experience of eating was actually worthy of sharing. And so now I'm back on track, and I'll give you an update maybe in a month or two when I'm back at my, previous levels, and then I'm exceeding those levels, and I'll let you know what I had to do to get there and whether or not it was difficult, and we'll just take it as it comes. I want to thank everybody for watching. As always, I've been your host, CDB. You're not, and God bless.